speaking for us as voluntarists, we are not blackpilling or pessimistic about any of this stuff.
I have so many thoughts on this because I've been getting this for years. I make my videos about, I never say the word anarchy, but like that's what I'm articulating. And invariably, no matter the video, even if it's a video on like solutions, I get a comment like, well, what's your solution? All you're doing is complaining. You just want to complain. And there's several layers of my counter to this, which is first, like, I think it's a reflection of how deep the indoctrination is that if you don't vote, you're doing nothing. It's like this belief that your only agents, the only thing you could possibly do is to like check a box for somebody to do it for you. That's doing something, especially in the context of like, well, again, how effective has that been? Has that led to less government? No, not from either party. So there's that. But then there's also, I strongly believe that what you're doing, what I like to think I'm doing in my videos is you're changing the level of consciousness. Right. And there's a great talk by Larken Rose. I'm a big Larken Rose fan. It's called So Small a Thing, I think, at Anarchapulco 2016. And he talks about like, you don't have to like fight the cops. You don't have to go wage war against the government. That's not going to be the most effective way, because what this is, it's a mindset. It's a belief system. So as much as somebody can call it complaining, to me, this is one of the most core solutions we could possibly pursue, is to change the way people think about government. Because people love to go on about like propaganda and indoctrination and in the public schools. And like, yes, that's all there. It's certainly, there's flavors of it. But the ultimate indoctrination to me is this belief in the state's legitimacy. Right. This is just what we were taught. It's what I was taught. It's what I believed without question for really no reason at all. It's just what I was told. And when it's like an authority adult figure telling you that that's true, why would you question it? But that's why it's so important to question it, and why that in itself to me is a solution. Right. Like change thought, because as soon as people's belief in the legitimacy falls away, their power crumbles. Like they are resting so much on our just assumption that they have authority. But to question the authority itself, I think, is so fundamental to any change, because we can have like the technological advances, that the disrupting solutions, and those are so important. Like I don't want to diminish those at all, but if we still have the mindset of statism, we're going to keep having statism. Like the material solutions really don't matter.
Dr. Tom Cowan, I'm not sure if you're familiar with him. What I appreciate about him so much is just the way that he thinks. And he said something to the effect of, the best way to discover what is true is to peel back all of the bad arguments and all of the things that are verifiably not true. And then you are left with something that has to represent something that is as close to truth as possible, right? And I think people like you, me, Larken Rose, what we're doing is we're ripping up all of the arguments for the state and the necessity of the state, and we're pointing people towards something where they have to form their own solution. Because it's also, I think, a major problem that people are even coming to us thinking that we are required to give them a solution. Right. And I completely agree with you too, that the mindset shift itself is the solution, because you think that, you know, thoughts and feelings lead us to actions or inaction, and I would say beliefs as well, that create our reality. So shifting the paradigm of beliefs, thoughts, and feelings is what leads to actions that are predicated on the individual doing the work. And that's the other thing about voluntarism. When people are turning to people like me and you and looking for solutions, that actually flies in the face of what we're preaching, essentially, because it's all about developing your own individual solution and getting out of a collective mindset. That's the whole point.
Completely. And I think a big impediment to that I think we haven't gotten into yet is really the emotional aspect. Yeah. Because we live in such a fear-based climate, and it's very much like, it's this idea, at least what I observe in the modern political climate, and I think really always, is people have feelings that don't feel very good. They're afraid of something. They're angry about something, and they just want it to go away. Like, I don't want to feel afraid. I don't want to feel this discomfort. I don't like this. Please, somebody make it go away. And then these politicians step in and they're like, I can solve this for you. Don't worry about it. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to do anything. I'll handle it for you. And it's very easy to get caught in that trap, even if they're saying things, you know, like RFK says some good things. And I don't think he's intentionally I don't know. I don't know enough to comment on him, but like, I don't think he's like,
I think he grew up in a political environment, and that's
exactly.
what he knows.
That's what he knows.
That's what he knows.
And that's what it comes down to, is like, what do we know? We know that the system works. We know that it's the most superior, it's the peak of civilization. We evolved to democracy and representative government, and that's how we solve problems. And we also know that, like, well, I don't like feeling this discomfort. I don't want to feel afraid. Like after 9/11, everyone was terrified. And so they wanted the government to do something. And you lose your agency that way. You lose your sense, even like your sense of self-worth, even if you're not conscious of it, this idea of like, I can't solve my own problems. And I know that there are like big problems in the world, obviously, and one individual can't necessarily solve them all. But with all of the billions of people on this planet, like unique individuals with unique skills and gifts and perspectives, like it's hard to believe that people couldn't solve problems without government.
Right. I completely agree. And then you look at issues like the border, let's say, and like I said this the other day, I don't doubt that there is some sketchy people coming across the southern border, right? But I would say largely the issue was initially created by government itself. The US government waging war against people in foreign countries that then lead to displaced peoples who are then coming over. And it's like the left-hand, right-hand thing. The right, maybe more so neocons, which does, bring in some of the left. Obama dropped a lot of bombs.
Yeah.
But the point is neocons and the right historically have been the authoritarian one that, quote, fights for freedom abroad, dropping bombs over there. And then the left opens up the border for all those people who hate the government. And then also because this statist ideology has plagued the entire world at this point, conflate us as men and women who are just living here with the government. So then they hate us by virtue of that, and they're coming over through the border. But even so, right? I think that if there are sketchy people, and I believe there are coming across the border, ultimately the problem is not going to be solved by more government, and whatever, quote, solution the government offers because of that issue is going to make the problem worse and is going to infringe upon more of our rights.
It's going to give the government more authority. So it's kind of like this, I struggle with the perspective of like, well, we need more government to solve this problem. Well, what does that mean? That means more police. That means more control over your private information, probably, like more patrols, more everything, like biometrics, all of these things that'll be ushered in. And it's like, again, with government, you might be cool if your party, if your team does it, but what happens when the other team gets into power? You're not going to like it very much. Like Obama with his kill list. Liberals are, first of all, most liberals didn't even know about it. But like if they did, it was like, well, but he's not going to abuse it. He said he wasn't going to abuse it. Same with the NDAA with the indefinite detention clause, which I'm pretty sure is still in the NDAA every year. It's not in the text, but because it was passed, I think in like 2012.
I don't think it was ever repealed.
No, I think there have been some attempts, but I'm pretty sure it's still in there. Like those kinds of things. Well, you can rationalize that when your guy has the power, but what about when the guy you don't trust has it? And it's like that pendulum swing back and forth. And in the end, the government always wins.
Do you have any friends who are voluntarists who've decided that they're going to vote for RFK?
No.
You don't have any?
I don't. It sounds like you do.
I do. Yeah. And I don't know. I just, that just bothers me based on principle. Like, I mean, again, there are countless things that I personally disagree with RFK on, but let's assume that I agreed with him on every single thing. Just again, going back to the Palestinian example, putting someone in office that is going to use a mechanism that is government to wield authority over everyone else violently just doesn't seem right to me. It doesn't seem morally justifiable. And I don't know. I just look at it as a big trick, whether unintentional or not, to get people to be conditioned in the statism ideology again, because so many people are starting to wake up to the problems with government itself. I had a friend who's a huge RFK supporter message